Hey guys, STLYoungblood with you, and as part of the From Rookie to Wookiee series, I wanted to talk about choosing the best possible rifle for an aggressive recon gameplay. Now, when I'm saying aggressive recon, I'm talking about you're on the offense, sometimes you're in close quarters, using a bolt-action rifle. So we're going to go through the 9 that you can actually choose from. We're not going to be covering the DMRs or the semi-autos just because that doesn't really fit into this playstyle. Now, you can be successful with it, but that's not really what I'm focusing on. So before we actually start cutting some down to make your choice a little bit easier, there's some things that you want to look for when you're choosing your rifle, and we're going to talk about those in a second. But some things that are really in the favor of an aggressive recon rifle would be how well it retains its damage over range. Now, you probably normally think about quickscoping and up close, but ultimately, if you're playing an objective game type, you're going to have to shoot at some minis that are farther away than you would maybe want to in this playstyle. Spread is obviously going to be really important, especially while moving and ADS'd. Reload speed is something that's beneficial. It's not a deal breaker by any means, but it can help out. And then the last one is fire rate. Now, some ones that you shouldn't really be too concerned with would be muzzle velocity, max distance, bullet drop, all of those stats that you would associate with long distance sniping, just because they don't really hold a whole lot of merit, especially when you're going to be closer than sitting on a hill or a mountain shooting a long distance away. Alright, so let's go ahead and start crossing some rifles off your list to make this decision-making process a little bit easier. The first rifle that you start out with is the Csl R4. All of these are going to be your bolt-action rifles, and this one in particular, along with several of the others, doesn't really retain its damage over distance very well. Its damage drop-off starts at 100 meters. Now, that's not necessarily a deal breaker up close, but it is a good benefit, especially because when you're running around in an aggressive recon role, especially in the objective game types, you don't really know what distances you're going to be engaging enemies from, and the longer damage drop-off is better. Also with the Csl R4, it's got quite a bit of spread, both while standing still and while moving, and it's obviously very important to make sure that you're able to land your shots while using a bolt action, and missing them is going to be a big issue. So spread is a little bit higher than I prefer. The SV98, again, doesn't really retain its damage over distance very well. It's about 100 meters again. Now, the SV98 does have pretty good hipfire spread, but ADS spread, and that's aimed down sights, isn't as good as some of the other options. And when you're talking about reliably landing aggressive shots, you're going to be quickscoping and actually aiming down sights. So while it does well at the panic hipfire shots, it's not going to do as well when you're actually doing your quickscoping. The JNG90 I cross off for the same reason as the Csl R4. It doesn't retain its damage over distance well, again 100 meters, and it's got quite a bit of spread while standing still and while moving. Now, the next two I want to kind of talk about together, and that's going to be the M98B and the SRR61. That's the old intervention for you Modern Warfare 2 players. Both of these have a slower rate of fire than some of the other options. They have a lot of spread, regardless if you're standing still or moving. And really, they're the powerhouses that are best suited for long range or like defensive sniping roles. You wouldn't really want to choose these while you're aggressive and moving around quite a bit on the offense. So we're going to cross both of those off our list. And the last one is the FYJS. Now, the FY is unlocked via assignment, so you're not going to be able to just get this by playing the Recon class, unless the assignment's actually tied to that. Now, it's got a low minimum damage, it doesn't retain damage well over distance, and it's got a significant amount of spread. So this one's an easy one to cross off the list. So if you're doing your math, you'll notice that there's 3 left. So let's kind of get into why I'm choosing these 3 and how you can choose between them. Now, these last 3 options are ones that I've chosen as the best for this type of role. And of these 3, things like fire rate, damage, spread are the biggies that kind of made me choose and narrow down to these 3. Now, my least favorite of these is the M40A5, and there's a couple reasons for that. It kind of falls in the middle ground between the other 2 options quite a bit. Now, on a positive side, it's got the largest magazine size. It's got 11 bullets compared to 6. And it also has the best reload times, whether that's tactical or a completely empty magazine. Now, it's right in the middle when we're talking about the ending damage and the rate of fire overall. But it does have the shortest max damage range, and it's got the most spread of the 3 remaining rifles. Now, it's still a great option, especially for being the second unlock overall, so you get to play with it pretty early on. That being said, my second choice overall is the very next rifle that you unlock, and that's going to be the Scout Elite. Now, the Scout Elite is Enigma's choice, Sergeant Enigma. He is the aggressive recon. So it's hard to say that he is wrong here. And these last two are so close in my mind that it's really tough to differentiate. But let me tell you why this falls as a number 2 for me. On the positive side, it's got the best rate of fire overall, and it's got the best hipfire accuracy both while standing still and while moving. Obviously, spread is low, which is great, and it does well with the ADS while moving spread. That being said, it's not the best. The one category where it really falls off is it's got the worst ending damage by far, quite a bit lower. So when you're talking about having the ability to pull off, one-hit kills from medium to longer ranges, it's going to be a little bit tougher with the Scout Elite. Excellent rifle. I've had a ton of success with it, and you unlock it really early, which is a real plus. Now, my personal choice here is the 338 Recon. Now, let's start with the negatives on this one. It's got the worst rate of fire and the worst reload time, and it's tied with the Scout Elite with only six bullets. Now, not a lot of bullets, and the longest reload time is kind of a bad combo, but none of these have a really long reload time. Now, it's only slightly worse than the Scout Elite, about 8% with hipfire spread, so that's not a huge differentiating factor. However, my number one reason for choosing this is that the ADS, so while you're aiming down sight spread, is the lowest while you're moving. And in this type of role, there's going to be a lot of times while you're moving and shooting at the same time. Ideally, you can stop, line up your shot, and get that 0 spread, but it doesn't always happen, and I think this is what really, really makes this rifle shine. On top of that, it's got a better minimum damage, about 61% at range compared to the Scout Elite, and the damage drop-off ends quite a bit further. We're talking about 150 meters versus 110 on the Scout Elite. So you can get that damage further out, meaning especially in objective-based games, you're more effective at range around maybe like MCOM stations or around flags. So whatever it may be. For me, the Scout Elite may be a better option in TDM, where you're really close to your targets and it's just kind of a cluster you-know-what. But when you're talking about overall best aggressive recon rifle, in my mind and for my money, it doesn't get better than the 338 Recon. So, there you have it. You've got Youngblood's choice with the 338 and Enigma's choice with the Scout Elite. Honestly, the two of them are so close, it's really hard to decide. But you should really go out and play with these yourself and see what you think. One of the next videos I'm going to be doing is on actually attachments and kind of best setups, different things you should be using based on your game type. So stay tuned for a lot more. If you haven't subscribed yet, go ahead and hit that button, and I will talk to you guys soon. So thanks a lot and take care.